The morning had started like every other for Emily Carter, a swirl of rushing footsteps, a tired heart that had learned to beat quietly, and a hope so faint she barely remembered what it felt like. She had mastered the art of keeping her struggles hidden behind small smiles and polite nods, especially for the sake of her 7-year-old daughter, Lily. But on that cold, pale blue morning in Seattle, when the sky looked like it had forgotten how to shine, something unexpected stirred in Emily's world. A moment was waiting for her inside a quiet café, a moment she would remember forever, because she thought she was just stopping for coffee, just taking another breath between the chaos of her life. But she never imagined someone would sit down for her daughter too, and change everything she believed about kindness, love, and second chances. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good people still existing in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Emily had been a single mother for almost 5 years, ever since her ex-husband walked out with a simple message that he wasn't ready for responsibility. The way he said it, as if Lily were a burden instead of a blessing, had carved a quiet wound inside Emily that never fully healed. She learned to live with it, to patch up her sense of worth day by day, paycheck by paycheck, but the ache never truly left. She worked as a medical assistant at a small clinic, spend her days taking care of others while barely holding herself together. Between rent, groceries, and Lily's school needs, there wasn't much room left for comfort or rest. Yet Emily continued, because she had someone watching her with big brown eyes, someone who believed she was the strongest person in the world. That morning, Emily and Lily entered the cafe near the clinic. Because Lily had asked for hot chocolate, Emily had hesitated. Money was tighter that week, but she said yes, because saying yes to little joys was all she could afford to give her daughter. They chose a corner table beside the window. The warm light inside washed over Lily's soft blue dress, her favorite, and Emily watched her little girl rest her cheek on her hand, daydreaming as only children could. Emily's own clothes were simple, a gray shirt and a cream cardigan that had seen better years. She tugged the sleeves nervously, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle over her body. But that was when she noticed him. A man at the counter kept glancing toward them, not in a way that made her nervous, but in a way that felt like recognition, as if he saw her carrying something heavy even though she pretended she wasn't. He looked around her age, maybe mid-30s, with gentle eyes and the kind of calm presence that made him seem rooted even in a noisy world. He wore a blue sweater layered over a collared shirt, simple but neat, like someone who cared about his life but wasn't trying to impress anyone. When the barista handed him his coffee, he thanked her with a soft smile, then turned again in Emily's direction. She dropped her gaze. Embarrassed people rarely noticed her, and when they did, she often wished they hadn't. She had spent so long living quietly that any attention felt unfamiliar. She thought that would be the end of it. But then, as Lily hummed to herself and stirred the last bit of cocoa in her mug, the man walked toward their table. Emily's heart thudded with instinctive caution. Years of being alone had taught her to stay guarded. She straightened in her seat, ready to politely decline whatever conversation he intended to start. But instead of speaking to her first, he looked at Lily with a warm respect that immediately made Emily freeze. He asked if he could sit. Emily nodded, unsure why she agreed. Maybe because something in his presence didn't feel threatening. It felt gentle, the kind of gentle she longed for, but never allowed herself to hope for again. His name was Daniel Hayes, and he was a high school counselor. As he spoke, Emily realized he wasn't the type of man who looked at people and saw inconveniences. He saw stories, and when he looked at Lily, there was no awkwardness, no forced politeness, no unfamiliar discomfort. With children, he genuinely cared. Lily, being shy at first, quietly clung to Emily's sleeve, but Daniel didn't push. He talked softly about simple things, how he used to love hot chocolate as a kid, how he almost spilled his cup earlier, and how grown-ups could be just as clumsy as children. Lily giggled, loosening the cautious barrier she always held around new people, and in that tiny giggle, Emily felt something warm unfold, as if the air around their table had shifted as they spoke. Emily noticed Lily studying Daniel the way children observe someone they instinctively trust. Emily's heart squeezed. Lily rarely connected with strangers. She had learned early in life that not all adults stayed. Emily listened as Daniel talked, And soon the fear in her chest loosened slightly for the first time in a long time. She didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like a burden or an afterthought. She felt seen, not just as a tired woman, but as someone who mattered. But Emily's inner doubts, ones she had lived with for years, whispered warnings. He's just being kind. Don't read into it. Don't hope yet hope. Quiet and persistent, stirred anyway. Over the next several weeks, the café became a silent meeting ground, sometimes by chance, sometimes not. Daniel and Emily crossed paths each time. He made a point to include Lily in every part of their conversations. He asked her about school, about her drawings, about what made her happy that day. He never treated her as an extra piece of Emily's life. He treated her as part of the whole. And each time Lily ran home to tell her mother how funny Daniel was or how he remembered her favorite color, Emily's heart swelled and ached at the same time. She had been alone for so long that she didn't know what to do with a man who walked at her pace instead of rushing ahead or drifting away. But Daniel wasn't like the world she was used to. He noticed the details she tried to hide. When she was tired, he slowed their conversation. When she was overwhelmed, he gently shifted focus. And on days she came in with sadness in her eyes, he spoke softly enough that she didn't feel pressure to pretend. One rainy afternoon, something fragile inside Emily cracked. She had just received a notice from her landlord about a rent increase she could barely afford. She had also learned that Lily needed a dental procedure not covered by insurance. The weight of it all pressed into her like a collapsing ceiling. She walked into the café with trembling hands, forcing a smile so Lily wouldn't worry. Daniel saw it instantly. He didn't pry, didn't ask uncomfortable questions. He simply sat beside her, brought her a cup of coffee she hadn't asked for, and waited quietly until she could breathe again. Lily was coloring beside them, unaware of the storm swirling inside her mother. For the first time in years, Emily let tears fall in front of another adult. But instead of pity, Daniel offered steady presence. No dramatic gestures, no promises he couldn't keep, just quiet support. And that was the moment Emily realized how dangerous hope could be. Because hope made you want things. Hope made you imagine a future where someone stood beside you, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Emily fought those feelings for weeks. She didn't want to depend on anyone, didn't want Lily to form attachment that might crumble. But every time Daniel showed up with kindness that asked for nothing in return, her heart softened more than she expected. One Saturday morning, as they sat at their usual table, Lily reached out and held Daniel's hand. Emily froze, breath trapped in her chest, but Daniel only smiled, squeezing Lily's small hand with a sincerity that made Emily's eyes sting. That was when she knew he wasn't sitting with them because he was interested in her alone. He was sitting with them because he saw a family that needed warmth, not rescue, and he cared enough to offer it. But Emily still struggled internally. There were days she convinced herself it was better to distance herself so no one got hurt. Days she tried to leave the cafe earlier so she would to accidentally meet Daniel, but fate, or maybe life's gentle timing, always pulled them back together. One evening, after a long shift at the clinic, Emily found Daniel waiting outside, holding 2 cups of coffee and a small cup of hot chocolate for Lily. He said he happened to be in the area, but the look in his eyes told her he was lying. He was there because he noticed. She'd had a difficult week, something her finally surrendered. She let him in. Days turned into weeks, and weeks became months. Daniel became a constant presence, not overwhelming, never stepping ahead faster than Emily was ready for, but steady, patient, and profoundly kind. On weekends, they took Lily to parks, bookstores, and little art shops where she could draw to her heart's content. Emily watched them together and saw something she only hoped Lily would experience: a safe, reliable man who valued her for who she was. Emily's world, once colorless, slowly blossomed again. She found herself smiling more genuinely, laughing without forcing it, breathing without the weight of the world crushing her chest. But the moment that sealed everything happened on a quiet autumn evening. Daniel invited them to a small family festival at a local school. Lily wore her favorite blue dress, and Daniel walked beside her, holding her little backpack because it was too heavy for her small shoulders. Emily walked behind them, watching the 2 people she loved most and realizing how rare it was to find a man who didn't just love you, but loved your child as effortlessly as breathing. That night, under the soft glow of string lights and the gentle hum of music, Daniel looked at Emily with a steady tenderness and told her he didn't just want to be part of her life, he wanted to be part of Lily's too. Not as a replacement father, not as someone trying to fix anything, but as someone choosing them intentionally, wholeheartedly. Emily cried because she understood what that meant. She had thought it was just coffee, just a moment, just a coincidence. But Daniel had shown up for her daughter from the very first day, And that was the moment she knew she didn't just meet a kind man. She met the man who would rewrite the meaning of second chances for both her. And Lily, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these emotional stories reach more people. Before the ending, please comment below. Do you believe fate brings the right people at the right time? And as they walked home hand in hand, Emily, Daniel, and little Lily, the world didn't feel so heavy anymore, because sometimes the smallest moments become the most life-changing ones, and sometimes love doesn't. Enter through grand gestures. It walks quietly to your table, sits down across from your child, and chooses to stay.